Welcome, everybody. The big question today is what increases the risk of heart attack by over 2,000%? We're going to be dealing with this very, very important issue right after this. Welcome, everybody. This is the Life Enthusiast online radio and TV network. I'm Scott Patton, your co-host. Joining us as usual is health coach Martin Pytela. Hey, Martin, how are you doing today?
Great, Scott. I'm starting to think that we'll have to change the name. Radio and TV, it's just so last century, It's just going to be the online podcast network because
the online
that's the only thing that matters. I was just thinking, if Trump gets his way, all he has to do is ban advertising of pharmaceuticals on television or on mass media, period. And 50% of their revenue is gone, like that. Can you imagine the difference this will make?
Yeah.
And I think he can pull it off. I'm just curious to see.
Well, and streaming TV is taking it over as well. Having said that, there's still millions and millions of people that turn on their TV. There's no longer one TV in a house. There's 3 or 4. So, and then of course, online radio is a big deal with podcasts and everything else. So,
right, indeed.
It's just that I've been saying it for 20 years, and now you're asking me to change.
I'm not. I'm just being silly. Okay, so listen, I want to tell you, you said that something raised the risk of heart attack 20-fold. One famous thing that really raised the risk of heart attack was Vioxx.
Is what?
Vioxx, Vioxx, a drug that was approved, certified, put out, and 100,000 heart attacks later, pulled off the market.
Right.
That's about 20 years ago.
Yeah, we've done a lot to, and with everything that's happened in the last 4 years, there's a significant number of people who are dying of heart attacks and heart issues that were not the normal, shall we say, market for heart attacks. But that's not actually what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about today, and we're just going to get right to it because I really hate it when people string you along and string you along and string you along. It's if you have a trauma, like someone that you really care for, really love, passes away suddenly, that loss of a loved one can cause a lot of stress, a lot of trauma, and a lot of heart attacks.
Yeah.
And we've had an interesting situation in my life, and that a very good friend of mine, his mom, who's 91, my mom is 91, she passed away about 2.5 weeks ago. His mom passed away, not mine. And now when I was talking to him, he's got laryngitis, his nose is running, he's sick, he's like, oh. And of course, like most people, it's now I'm sick, what should I do? Like for me, it's no, now you're healthy and good is when you should do a whole bunch of things so that you don't get all that sickness and illness down the road.
Yeah, well, you just put a really nice point on this following. Any one thing, any one traumatic event can take you over the edge, over the top. Right? Like you're carrying, I'll put it this way. I remember I was on a sleigh ride. Horse was pulling a sleigh and the snow was not that deep, so it was catching on rocks and stuff. But anyway, the more people were piling up on the wagon, the less capable the horse was of pulling that thing. And at some point, it actually just stopped and the horse couldn't budge it.
Right.
And that's the horse couldn't care less how many people or who was on the wagon. All he knew is that it was too hard to pull.
Right. So he stopped.
So he couldn't pull it. Anyway, the deal, what I'm trying to say is these traumatic events, whether it's a death of a loved one or a divorce or a moving house, losing a job, weather change, storm coming, food poisoning, any one particular event is going to be the extra load. Do you know what the most popular time of week it is to have a heart attack?
I've heard it's Monday.
8 o'clock on Monday morning. Heading to
Yep.
work.
Heading to
Cannot
work.
stand it. I would just as soon be dead.
Right.
Yep.
So one of the things I want to bring up before we get any further into this is some people think, oh, I get a germ, I get a cold germ, I get a cold. Other people say, you know what? The inside of our mouth, our throats, our esophagus, our stomach, our digestive system, and everything else, it's all like land inside us. It has terrain, fauna and flora and all this stuff. And if it's a forest in there, then you don't really have a lot of health problems. But if it's been glyphosate has decimated it, or it's been like a forest, been chopped down, burnt, and everything else, then when something happens, all of a sudden you get all these illnesses. And if you take on top of that we live in a toxic environment, we're eating things that are full of toxins, we're breathing things that are full of toxins, our body gets it. 500 years ago, we didn't have these things. So for the last 2 million years, we've never had to deal with it, except for now. The body just sticks it somewhere where it can do the least amount of damage. Then it gets released. And then that's what we call the common cold or the flu, right? So we've got all this toxins coming out of us through our nose, our eyes, or our, bum. But we have an equilibrium until something causes it to fall apart, right? Like there's this equilibrium. I'm healthy, I'm fine, and then all of a sudden, this terrible thing has happened. Boo-hoo! And all of a sudden, everything holding the dam back breaks, and all this. So my friend isn't really sick; he's detoxing at a high level, and in my opinion, you can. We talk about real life things here. Spain had a bunch of rain. There was a bunch of rain that fell on the plains of Spain, right? And it flooded out Valencia, a beautiful city on the Mediterranean coast. Well, what nobody talks about was 350 dams in Spain were ripped down because of climate change and going back to nature and everything else. So all this stuff that was stopping floods was gone. So then when they had a lot of rain, and they had a lot of rain, they're not normal amount of rain, like a lot, it just caused havoc because whole villages were swept away and all the rest of it. And I think that's kind of what happens with us. We've got these dams are up, and they're, keeping all the toxins from like making us feel sick. But some trauma happens, and it's just kind of like swoosh, they all get, decimated, and all this stuff comes out. And I think it would help us if we said, hey, I'm really just detoxing. I just got to let my body detox, as opposed to doing stuff that kind of hides it and then doesn't let us detox.
Right. And so I'm just noticing one note. Yeah, that's a great note. Kevin, just piling on the same. When you have a traumatic event, and I'm sorry you lost your mom. We all at some point do. I already did. Anyway, it's just to be expected. Be ready for when life gets hard, because it does. And then George put in, when I was babbling about all the sources of stress, he pops in with combat. George, I'm such an innocent newbie here, right? Like I've never been to war. I've never had bullets flying at me. I have no clue what that feels like, but I can just imagine just how I would be pooping my pants. I remember the Swan line. Everybody has a battle plan until they get punched in the face. Right? It's life has its way with us. We could think that I'm good, and then stuff happens that just makes it so obvious how not ready we are. Yeah. Okay, so Scott was telling you why. I would like to tell you how, which is you need to remember that there are these four pillars on which this trouble stands: trauma, stagnation, toxicity, and malnutrition. We need to eat good stuff. You need to fill your body with high nutrient, low calorie type of food. You need to make sure that the industrial age toxins are both taken out if you already have them on and stopped from coming in. Speaking of combat, back in 91, soldiers came back with uranium in their systems because they started using depleted uranium munitions. That stuff was phenomenally good. I mean, uranium is even heavier than lead. And anyway, touching the stuff or being near it, when a uranium bullet splats onto some armor, it's at least partially evaporates. So you're inhaling these heavy metals. Anyway, you can inhale heavy metals by being in traffic. You're inhaling the brake pads that are wearing off, that people are braking coming to the red light, and you're inhaling the rubber bits that are wearing off on the street and so on. Like, there's just zero chance that you're not toxic. You need to work on that. You need to make sure that it's, the stagnation business is terrible. Our sedentary lifestyles are so antithetical to good health. At least walking. Scott gets a dog. He knows how to do it. Right? How many miles do you walk every day? 3, 4?
Yeah, I try for between 3 and 4 miles a day.
Oh.
And I was looking after 2 dogs in Panama, and they were big dogs, and they wanted me to take one at a time. And it was go to the end of the block and back. But it's hot, they're big, they're old. So it was like, instead of like 2 times, it was 4 times, because instead of 2 big walks, it was 4 small walks. So actually it was like 2 little walks and 2 small walks. But I'm looking at this, how far this is, and I figured it out. And I thought, if I take these dogs, to the end and back all these times, it's 5 miles over a day, right? So that's what I did. The poor dogs were like, we don't have to go this. Do we have to go this far? We usually only go half of this distance. But yeah, so I just figured out a way to combine the dogs with the walking. And then I figured out where to walk, so I knew how far I went. And it's a good feeling when you go, wow, I get 5 miles a day. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Look, George just posted this one. A weight vest walk today. You're just missing the army pack, right? A weapon and a bag of bullets and 3 days of rations. You know what I heard? That 77% of men in the age pocket for being drafted as a soldier are currently unable to pass the grade. 77%. That means 23% only are capable of service. God help us if somebody attacks us. Anyway, so Scott, we should be talking about the trouble with the heart, right?
Yeah, we should. And it's really important that we get some exercise. I think you covered a lot of it really good. Like, you need to get some movement, you need to detox, and you need to eat good food, because obviously we've been eating ultra processed foods. That seems to be the latest buzzword.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Yeah. I was reviewing our podcasts, and about 12 years ago, we talked about organic cookies. I remember this was an advertisement that came in mail, and it was just a splash. And it was organic, but it was shortbread cookies, and it was just organic junk food, right? Organic strawberries with organic sugar in organic cookie. But
organic flour.
Yeah, shoot me. That's not what living healthy is.
So we're talking about the stress that can trigger it, and we've been talking about stress a lot. So
Yes.
I think the next step would be, how can we reduce some of our stress? And it kind of reminds me of my trips to Hawaii. Howley is what they call the white man. And the reason that they call white man Howley, which translates as no breath, is because the Englishmen would come, they'd get a gang of local Hawaiian guys, and they'd say, we're going to do this, and that. And then they'd say, go. And then, of course, the lieutenant, because it was the Navy sort of thing, would walk away. And all of the Hawaiian guys stood and didn't move. And then after, like you walk about 5 steps, like, come on, you guys, get going. It's like, no, what we do is we breathe in, out, we prepare our bodies, and then we go do the job. And they were just amazed that these people, these white guys, would come along and they would just run around and do everything. And I do it still, even though I know this story. Instead of taking a nice deep breath, a couple breaths, get the breath in, get the breath out, very, very powerful, and then go do your thing. So when you do that, it has an impact on your stress levels.
Yep. Deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. There are these things that help us activate the parasympathetic, the rest and repair, rather than the fight or flight.
Right.
And yoga teaches wonderful things. They have these, they call it the bandha, B-A-N-D-H-A, which is a lock. And this one you should try and remember. It's take your tongue and roll it back and touch the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth, preferably past the hard palate to the soft palate. So roll, and I can't talk when I do that, but when you do that and do breathing, and it's called the box breathing, which is count to 4 or count to 7, whatever number you pick. Inhale on that count, hold for that count, exhale for that count, and hold again for that count. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in, 1, 2, 3, 4 hold, 1, 2, 3, 4 out, 1, 2, 3, 4 hold. And another cool breath is the one that's twice as long exhalation as inhalation, with a stop in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in, hold 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out, hold 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 in, like that. I can't demonstrate it without being silent. I just don't know how to shut up.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And it's the sort of thing that you could do like, I think we just have so many bad habits. Like, we go to the grocery store, we spend 20 minutes in line, and we just sit there. Instead, we could be doing this breathing exercise, right? We could be doing eye rotation exercises. We could be sitting there tapping, and everyone's like, what is this guy doing? But, like, there's a lot of things that we could do while we're standing in line, instead of just like, just
Waiting for it. Yeah, just letting the time go.
Stuck in traffic, right? Of course, some of these breathing exercises, you have to be really careful, because if you need to be alert, they put you in a meditative state and you're not necessarily alert, right? So you have to kind of be careful.
Well, you can do the fire breath.
The fire breath, yeah. And or just tightening up the muscles, doing some stretching.
The famous bellows.
Hyperventilating, and then you'll faint. That'd be really good on the highway.
Yeah, that's it.
So there's 2 types of stress. Like, we kind of talked about everything being triggered by a traumatic event, but we have acute stress and we have chronic stress, and they both create different problems. But so talk a little bit about those different types of stresses, Martin.
Right. Well, acute stress is something happens, a gun goes off, then you start looking, well, what happened? Why did it happen? Whereas chronic stress is you are now in a situation where the guns go off all the time. You have to sleep through that, but it keeps stressing you because there's danger. The worst form of that I can imagine is a child growing up in a family of an alcoholic who's unpredictable. The kid never knows if he or she is safe or not safe. Am I going to get beat today? the anticipation of this monster arriving, and which is it going to be today? That is a chronic stress. And you'll grow up with that just damaged.
And so that would be more long-term trauma too, right? Like if you're
It's traumatic and stressful, right? Stress begets response, begets trauma.
Right.
Whereas how stressful is it being? Yeah. How stressful is it being raped?
Right. So what are some of the things that we can do to deal with this stress?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about it, this deep breathing and learn to meditate. And then, of course, undoing the chronic stress effect takes work. Tapping, Scott demonstrated it just a moment ago, is one of the methods where we learn to reprogram the subconscious so that the reaction to it is different.
Yeah. I use subliminal CDs. I really like them.
Yeah.
The music is certainly calming, and you're relaxing for that period of time, if nothing else, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we're a society that needs to be like busy, right? Even though we talk about sedentary, we're in front of our computers and we're like working, or we have to be. So when you have these like subliminal CDs that George was talking about, it's like, well, now I'm supposed to sit back and relax, have them on here, close my eyes, breathe.
Yeah, I'm doing the tape.
I'm still being busy, but it's relaxing busy.
Yeah,
it's funny how we are, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing accounting while listening to a podcast. One thing is not enough. I need to have two.
Right, two things, right?
I don't like to waste time, right? So if I'm doing accounting, that's math. I can have another thing playing in the background that's something different. So my left brain is busy with this, and my right brain is busy.
One thing I want to bring up is sleep. Like, I think most of the time I'm just always amazed when I'm around different people, and it's like they have the TV on all night, and they've got these flashing and lights and from the TV and the noise of the TV and everything else, and they're sound asleep. And I'm like, oh, like how can that be restful, right?
Oh, let me explain that. That's sort of like sleeping by a campfire. It's flashing and it's crackling and there's wind in the trees. It's perfectly fine, Scott.
I don't know.
I would just assume do the ocean and campfire and all of that than the TV. But I get the thing that you can totally tune it out.
You can tune it out, but I don't know. Like, in my opinion, that's not relaxing, right? That's not getting rid.
There's stress in the background. Yeah.
There's stress in the background. I mean, all of a sudden there's a movie and two people are shooting at each other at 3 a.m. and you're asleep listening. You're in front of it, and the TV itself, I think, is giving off EMFs and light, like blue light and all that stuff. And so what I've done, because I've been in different places, and some of them, you can't get rid of the light, right? Like the blinds it's never really like dark, and I like to have dark. So I got a toque, and it goes, and I pull it down to here, and all of a sudden I'm in pitch black, right?
Okay.
I thought, I didn't think I would ever like get used to it, but I am used to it, right? So it's you see me in the morning when I get up, I've got this toque on up to here, and it just looked like those two guys that were like the two brothers.
The two Canadian dudes that
the two Canadians. Bacon. I got bacon, eh?
Doug something.
Doug and somebody else, right? So I look like one of them. But I found that I really notice the difference when I'm in the city and when I'm in the country. And when I'm in the country and there's moonlight, that's fine, right? But there's no there's not like 100 lights around me that are all on and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You get that quiet. And you're right. Like there's crickets where I am right now. I hear crickets, and there's birds in the morning and everything else. But that's really different than a motorcycle revving up and telling everybody for 10 miles around, I'm here, right?
I'm important.
I'm important. Yeah. And you're not.
All right. So let's talk about some of the stuff that we can do.
Right. And the one I really want to talk about is heart formula.
Right?
Yeah. The heart studies formula. Let's talk about that for 2 minutes.
Yeah, what's really interesting about this product is that it takes care of so many things. One, the problems that develop is hardening of the arteries, clogging of the arteries. They are particularly triggered by a inflammatory response of the body, and that vitamins, like the oxidative stress and the triglycerides and all of that business that causes the hardening, the mineralization. It's a response to the stress that you're having. We have composed this thing based on heart studies. That's how it got its name. It was a pile of paper about a foot tall when printed out, and we read it all and found all the different reasons and methods by which we know, based on these studies, that the body can recover, restore both the heart and the arteries and the veins, the cardiovascular system, all of it.
So one of the things that I hear you saying, Martin, is there are foods, herbs, foods, different things that we can eat that's going to improve our health, but we're not getting it in our regular diet. So
not enough of it for sure.
Not enough of it for sure. And the average person that has a Big Mac every second day and French fries and a Coke is probably not getting it in a week, what they really need, right? So our bodies are amazing. They work really, really well for a long, long time. But it's kind of like if you never did an oil change on your car, right? First couple of years, probably not too bad, but all of a sudden in year like 10 and 15 and 20, you're going to be struggling. And if you haven't changed the air filters, you're going to be struggling more. And if you haven't changed your tires after 100,000 kilometers and they're bald, you're going to have some more problems. So and we just don't do enough to support our body in its health. So we've talked about this before, like there's all these different herbs that animals are eating as they go through the forest, right? A little bark here, a little leaf here, and there could be 400 different types of foods that they eat in a day, little bits, right?
Yeah.
But we eat a lot of a couple things.
Yeah.
I mean, couple is a little bit of an exaggeration, but
No,
10.
it's not. No, Scott, visualize pizza. It's flour, cheese, tomato paste, and a bit of oregano, maybe, and perhaps a bit of pepperoni sausage from the pig.
So Kevin says, blood flow becomes a big thing to me lately. It is one of the basic things for health. I'm using herbs and enzymes. Good for you, Kevin.
Yeah, good on you. Well, if ever you feel like you're giving yourself an upgrade, the Heart Studies formula has all of these things in one place. You don't have to go shopping across the half acre to get all of it filed into a single bottle.
Right.
And I need to go.
Yeah. So we're going to head over to Telegram, t.me/life&co. Oh, what I was going to say was the link for the Life Heart Formula is in the comments. So if you want to check it out, go there. And I'm going to put this in the comments as well, but as we go off the air. And that's where we can talk without being worried about banning and all that sort of thing. So, because we've run into that problem many a time. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to see you next week, same time, and join us over on Telegram. Bye for now.